Welcome to I Am a Hebrew, learning biblical Hebrew through the book of Jonah, class number 6. We are brought to you by the Seattle Kollel, seattlekollel.com, seattlekollel.com. If you would like to make a donation to the Seattle Kollel. Thank you for joining this evening. I put a link to the resources Google Doc in the YouTube comments. I want to pin that comment as soon as I can, but I got on a little bit late tonight because I was having a slight technical difficulty. So bear with me a second to pin that comment. Okay, let me see what I can do here. Okay, I've pinned the comment into the YouTube chat. Now I'm putting the same link into the private chat here in the studio for anyone who needs it. Otherwise, it's in the video description. It's also in the email that you received if you're on my email list. If you'd like to be on my email list or join us in the live studio for future classes, please email me at rabbirafimallet@gmail.com. You can also email me with your questions, comments, criticism, hate mail at rabbirafimallet@gmail.com. Please mind the spelling. It's the same as my channel name without spaces, or my Facebook name without spaces, etc., etc. Okay. I'm going to put on the screen the document. Okay, this is the document that I have linked in the hey, where'd it go? That I have linked in the comment box. It has the links to our various resources. So the first apology that I'm going to make is that I did not update this document. So it says updated January 14th. The truth is that it's been updated today, meaning these links have been updated, but I haven't gone in here and changed the text over here. I also have not updated the Quizlets yet with tonight's material, which I hope to do. Another apology is last week I had forgotten to update the glossary, and I even got an email about it from somebody who reminded me to update the glossary, and I did not sufficiently update the glossary with all the information from last week that was missing. So a little bit, yes, but I didn't have time to do all of it. So hopefully I was diligent enough to update at least with tonight's material. So the linear translation sheets will have tonight's material, and I think the glossary will have tonight's material, and we'll do the best that we can. Any questions or comments before we begin? You're welcome to comment in the YouTube chat or the studio, whatever you wish. And so we're going to go ahead and start. Remember, you go to this resource sheet, you open up the worksheet file, okay, just like I'm doing right now. I'll enlarge it. Okay, you're going to make a copy of it. You're going to click on File, make a copy of Jonah worksheets. I'm just going to do class 6 because to differentiate it from all my other copies that I make every single week. This is what we're gonna work inside our copy. You cannot work inside my copy, but you can work inside your copy. Another suggestion is print it out, use a pen and paper, have a notebook handy. If you're not great with technology, take notes, go back and watch the class later, whatever you want to do. But we're going to keep moving. You can stop me at any time. Okay, so I'm making a copy. And now you should be seeing my copy. Of course, it takes us to the top of the document, which is verse 1. We're going to scroll past it to get down to verse number 5, which is tonight's verse. We'll quickly review verse 4. This is what we did last week. We said, V'Hashem heitil ruach gedola el hayom, and Hashem cast a great wind into the sea or toward the sea. Vahisa'ar gadol bayam, and there was a great storm in the sea. And the boat thought to break, meaning he gave multiple understandings of what it means that a boat thinks to break. The boat appeared that it would break. Like if you were looking at the boat, you would think that it would break, or the sailors on the boat thought it would break. Anthropomorphism, whatever it is. It seemed the boat was going to break from the pressure of the storm. Okay. And then we come to verse 5. So everyone should be on this sheet that says Jonah Aleph Hey. That means Jonah chapter 1, verse 5. And we'll begin unless there are any comments or questions. Okay. Fine. I don't see any comments. I don't hear any comments or questions. So we're going to go ahead. Great. All right. What we're going to do, I'm gonna read it in Hebrew with the cantillation, and then we're gonna plug in the parts of the verse that we already should know how to translate from the past classes, and then we'll go back and we'll learn the new material. Okay, this is how the verse sounds in Hebrew, and you'll excuse me, I read with an Ashkenazic pronunciation. Vayireu hamalachim vayiz'aku ish el Elohav vayatilu es hakelim asher ba'aniyah lehakel me'alehem v'yonah yorad el yarkisei hasifina Vayishkav Vayerodam. Okay, now what does all that mean? We're going to figure it out now. So if we look at this first word, Vayireu, I'm going to tell you what you might think, and I'm going to tell you what not to think, and I'm going to tell you why. Because in the past, we learned the Va-Yud prefix, this Vav-Yud prefix, which we said means, who remembers? Anyone remember what it means? Va-Yud prefix?
And it was.
Okay, so we said, and it was, or alternative to it could be
He.
Okay, now and it or and he. Now, when you say was, you're using the state of being verb, but really the verb is determined by whatever the shoresh is, which I have highlighted in yellow, and it or and he performed this shoresh. Okay, sometimes it's the state of being, and it was, or and he was, they were, etc. So you're tempted here because you see the vayud to translate as and it or and he, but it is not so. And the reason it is not so is because you'll notice that I also highlighted this vav at the end, which is the u vowel, the u sound. I highlighted this in pink. And those of you who've been following the series might be confused and asking a question and saying, wait a minute, Rabbi, you normally highlight the suffixes in blue, prefixes in pink, and suffixes in blue. Here you've highlighted a suffix in pink. Why have you done that? So I'm telling you why. Because this u ending is attached to the prefix at the beginning. The prefix, the meaning of this prefix is dependent upon this suffix at the end. So I've highlighted them both in pink to indicate these two go together. You cannot translate this vayud without the u, and the u will change it. So based on that, I'm informing you we have not learned what this means yet. And since we have not learned what this means yet, we're going to leave it for now, and we're going to come back to it. Here's the shoresh Yud Resh Aleph. We have not learned this yet. We're moving on. But we have learned the prefix hey, and the prefix hey means what? Go ahead.
The.
Prefix hey. Hey, the definite article. Okay. So we're gonna that's this. So this first pink space here is gonna be for this part, the vayud u. Maybe. I always say maybe because we'll see what's going to happen. But this pink space is for the hey over here. Okay. So here's the and the. Okay. And we have the malachim. And this word is like a homonym with other words. And so it's confusing what it means. Don't jump to any conclusions what it means yet. I'm just going to tell you we haven't learned this word yet. But I will. And even this suffix, which I highlighted in blue the E sound here underneath the chet. The E is part of the suffix. So the suffix is im, the E vowel with yud mem ending, and we have not yet discussed this. So that's another piece we'll fill in. So all we have in the first line is the, okay? Same thing here. We have the vayud u with the shorish in the middle. We don't know what this means yet. So we're going to leave it. We have the word ish. We haven't learned the word ish yet. We have the word el. We have learned the word el. So I'm going to offer to you to tell me what el means, to fill in el.
2.
2. Thank you, Abigail. I knew I could count on you. So I'm actually going to highlight these together because both of these 2 green spaces go with the first green word ish, which we haven't discussed yet. But here is 2. 2. Now, here there are 2 suffixes at the end of this word Elohav. The 2 suffixes are the vav suffix, which I believe we have encountered before. Maybe not. Am I wrong? Maybe we have not encountered the vav suffix before. And this yud, we're also going to talk about. We don't know what this yud means yet. So we're gonna move on from there. Okay. Here again is another vayud u, which we're going to talk about. But in the word vayatilu, we don't know the vayud u, but we have met this shorish before. Those of you who may recall, last week we had this, which we actually just read tonight. Vahashem heitil ruach gedolah. Hashem heitil. He did this verb, which we translated as, who remembers?
Cast.
Cast. So it's going to be the same thing over here. It's going to be the same thing over here. Vayatilu, whatever the vayud is, cast. Okay. And then again, definite article hey is Abigail. Take it away.
The.
Okay. The. And then we have kelim. Again, we have that im suffix. And in front of that is the word keli. Keli. We're going to find out what that is. So far, we don't know. Okay. Let's keep going. Asher, we don't know. Okay. Ba'aniya, we should know this already because we had the bet prefix, in particular, when it has a kamatz vowel, that a vowel, or a in Sephardic pronunciation, what that means. And aniya we had. Where did we have this? We had this. Well, here's aniya over here in verse 4. What we had in verse 3, that Jonah found the oniya. Okay, so we know what that is, and fine. So the question is, who remembers this prefix with this word oniya? We'll let you give it a try.
So the bait means with or in, and
Okay.
aniya is boat.
Yes. Okay. You're most of the way there. Okay. So I'm going to give you in, and I'm going to give you boat. But we learned last time, if I'm not mistaken, let me double check. I'm going to back
We did. Yeah, we did.
That here we had, for example, bayam. Did we have it anywhere else? Bayam, when you have the bet, and it has as a vowel the, like here, the patach ah sound, or it could also have a kamatz ah sound, like here, this ba. Then we, in addition to in or with, we also have
the
definite article. Okay, so ba is in the ba'oniya, in the boat. Okay, fine. Now you'll notice I added in the state of being verb, which we're going to talk about. This is the implied state of being verb. Very often in biblical Hebrew, the state of being verb is not spoken out explicitly. It's implied. And this is one of those cases. So I filled it in because it's not apparent, even though you probably could have done it instinctively. But I just wanted to point out that it wouldn't be flowing out of a translation of the words. It would come more through an implication. Okay, let's keep going. And now we have lehakel. This is I'm just going to say words right now. This is a causative infinitive form, but based on my system of teaching, this shoresh we'll learn. We haven't learned it yet, but the lamed prefix we could still translate. So help me out with the lamed prefix.
2 or 4.
Okay, so since this is an infinitive verb, it's going to be 2. Okay, good. Now I have a mem prefix. You're on fire tonight, Abigail. Don't let me down.
I'm the only one answering, it seems.
Well,
so the mem is from.
The mem is from. No, I'm glad I have you here. So it looks like I reversed the order of the colors. This one should be the pink box, and this one should be the green box. So I apologize for that. I know Cliff is shy to answer, right, Cliff? So from, okay, and al we also had. Do you remember? Am I embarrassing you?
No, I'm searching. Al, on or upon.
Okay, good. So let's go with on for now. And then hem suffix we also had. So if you're looking in your glossary, you're looking in the right place.
There or them.
Yeah, so let's go with them. Okay, me'alihem. We have a whole line here. We got one whole line. Okay, now v'yona should be easy.
And Jonah.
And Yona. And Yona or Jonah. Okay, Yorad we also had.
Yeah.
You're doing the right thing. You're checking your notes. You're checking the glossary. You're gonna win the game.
You'll descend or go down.
Descend or go down. Okay, there are actually more comments than I realized. I was looking at the wrong place. There are some comments on the YouTube. So, oh yeah, Steven's here. And see, Shirley Ann's cheating. She's already telling us the meaning of words we haven't learned yet. Ship, thank you. Yes, Onia ship. Thank you, Stephen. Oh, he's answering. See, from, on. Oh, good, Yorad. So you said to descend or to go down. Very good. And this is the past tense form. And Jonah descended. This is like the simple past tense form. Yorad. It's just the shoresh with no other modifying letters. It's the simple male singular past tense. Yorad.
So what designates the past tense?
Okay, good. That would be kind of a bigger lesson to do tenses. I'm gonna right now everything's in the past tense because we're learning a story that takes place in the past. So more or less everything's written in the past unless I indicate to you otherwise. And once we get into that, we'll start seeing the differences. Okay, but for now it's all past tense. In other words, I could tell you this one is past tense because when you see it's you know what, it's a little bit complicated. For now, let's just keep it simple. We're learning a story that takes place in the past. We're going to take for granted that all the verbs are in the past tense unless indicated otherwise. Okay, it's good enough for now. Let's just go with that.
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks. I'm just a details person. Sorry.
No, it's good, and so am I. And I could go into detail here. Last week I think it was last week we were talking about the concept of the binyanim. Binyan literally means in Hebrew a building or a construct, a construction. And I said a binyan in English is what's called a conjugal form. And we had, we talked about active and passive and causative forms. So this is the active form, and the active form is in the past tense. It takes a particular form, and it's called. So if you want to go back to that, for a few minutes, I don't know who else is going to follow, but remember I told you in the causative form, it's called hif'il. And what do we always do when we talk about the binyanim, the conjugal forms? We use as the sample shoresh, the shoresh pei ayin lamed, which literally means to act, to do an action, pa'al. Okay, so in the causative form, we put it in hif'il is the causative form of this shoresh. So the binyanim always, they're always discussed, they're always expressed around this shoresh of pa'al. Okay, so again, hif'il is causative. Active is called binyan pa'al, as a matter of fact. Binyan pa'al, because it's just the simple shoresh with no modifiers. It's called pa'al. So pa'al is the simple, active, past tense, singular, masculine form. And when that's like as simple as it gets. Past, masculine, singular, pa'al, okay? Active. Once we make it female or plural, we're gonna start to modify that shoresh by changing vowels and adding letters, and then once we get into the present tense, it's going to change in a different way. And when it's in future tense, it's going to change in a different way. But just know for now, when it's just the shoresh, the 3 shoresh letters with no other modifiers, we're dealing with past tense, singular, masculine. Okay, I'm still oversimplifying it, but right now this word is in binyan pa'al. Binyan pa'al, simple, active, past tense. Well, again, the binyanim are not limited to tense. We can have the binyan pa'al in present and binyan pa'al in future, but in its most simple expressed form as just the shoresh with like an a vowel, yarad, pa'al, yarad. That is going to be, for now, that's past tense. Okay, anyway, but all these verbs are past. All these verbs are past. So you really, in order to know the difference between past, present, and future, it takes a deeper dive, which we're not going to do right now. So we'll leave that as it is. But just pointing out this simple form, the 3 letters of the shoresh with an a vowel pattern is past tense, singular, masculine, active. Okay, so Jonah descended. El Yarkitei HaSifina. So some of this is foreign and some of it is not. We'll go to El. El is, we had it already, right? We had it up here. Ishal Elohav. El is, go ahead.
2.
Okay. 2. Now, I have over here Ha, the definite article. And you'll notice there's 2 spaces of pink here, and they're both the definite article. And I'm going to go more into detail when we get there, especially because here you have L and then something, and then the, and then something. And yet here I have L2, and I put the right away, and then I get the again. And here I also made a mistake with the color. This should be green. Okay, so when we get to this line, we're going to discuss why the appears twice, why one's here, why one's there. It boils down to a difference between the way we say things in Hebrew and the way we say things in English. But I will just point out how we say it in Hebrew when we mean this in English. Okay, we're going to get there. But for now, we do have the definite article, and it's twice here. In the English, it'll appear twice. In Hebrew, it won't, because English and Hebrew are just spoken differently. Fine. And 2 more lines here. Now we come back to our classical, very comfortable, happy little vayud prefix, which means this
and
is the
he and it.
Right. And he, and again over here, and he. Okay. So what we based on only the previous classes, what we have from this verse, again, I don't know, it's like 40% of it is, right, something to something, 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 something to something, 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 something cast the something, something we're in the boat to something from on them. And Jonah descended to the something, something to something. And he something, something, and he something, something. So there's not much information here. But again, we have something to start with. So we're gonna go back and start learning new things. I'll take any questions at this point. Okay, so Shirley says in the comments, Yay, welcome. How are you? Your mic is off, so if you want to speak, turn on your mic.
Thank God. Baruch Hashem.
Okay, good to have you.
I finally figured out how to get into the live studio.
Yeah, there you go. You're here. We're glad to have you. So Shirley comments, with the Yud and the Vav, the tense can change past the future and vice versa. It's only the vice versa. The Yud Vav, really it's Vav then Yud. Vav Yud Vayud changes the future to the past. And really I should say that differently. What you mean, Shirley, is the Vav itself. There's the Vav, which is the reversing Vav. The Vav can reverse the future to the past and the past to the future. And in the case of the Yud is a future tense prefix. And when the Vav precedes it, it reverses that future tense prefix to the past. So that these verbs that we're looking at, like over here, just for example, the ones we're familiar with, right? And he something, something, this something, something is in the past. But if I would take away the Vav and just say Yishkav, Yishkav would mean he will do this verb. Yishkav, he will do this verb. Vayishkav, he did do this verb. That's the reversing Vav. And vice versa, as you said. When we learn the past forms, okay, like for example, this one, Yorad, he descended. If I would do V'yorad, and it depends on context, because sometimes it could just mean and he descended. It could mean that. But we'll see when we encounter such an occurrence that V'yorad could mean and he will descend, because the Vav reverses it. But we're not encountering that yet. So I don't want to go beyond what we're seeing in front of us. But that's what you mean. You mean it's the Vav, not the Yud, but it's the Vav specifically that reverses the tense. Okay, says Joseph Bowman, welcome. What is a segel above a letter? Great. So I think I know what you're referring to, and I'm gonna go up to it over here. Ish el Elohav, and we have above the Vav a segel. What's a segel? A segel is the vowel that's 3 dots in a triangular formation, like under the Aleph. Here, let's make it simple. Under this Aleph, you have 3 dots in a triangular formation, which is the sound. Sound. Now, what happens when you have it kind of reversed on top of the letter? So that is not a vowel. That is a cantillation mark. And that cantillation mark, the name of that cantillation mark is it's called I think it's also called the segol, as a matter of fact. It's called the segol, but it's the cantillation segol. And the cantillation segol, it's just a tune. It just indicates, it's also grammar, by the way, and it's also punctuation. Really, the song of the verses punctuates the verse. The punctuation in biblical Hebrew is the song. The tune indicates where to punctuate it, where there's like a comma and where there's a semicolon and where, etc. So this is kind of like a pause, the end of a phrase, if you will, and it has a fancy tune. This one up here, that's like a sideways S. These two are always paired. There's this one followed by this one. This one is called a zarka, and this one is called a segol, if I'm not mistaken, just like this vowel is called segol. And in the cantillation of the books of the prophets, because the cantillation for the books of the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, is different than the books of the prophets. So in the prophets, which we're reading, the tune would go Zarka segol, like that. So this would be read Vayizaku ish el Elohav, and it just goes to break up the phrases in a certain way, which is not our subject, but I think that's the answer to your question. What does the horizontal line joining two words do? Okay, so that's called if I'm not mistaken, that's called a makaf, the dash, and it tells you that these two words are joined like in the construct form that we spoke about, which that was just a word that Jacob Fadarecci gave me. But the construct form, meaning this word that comes before it is not standing alone. It's sort of dependent on this word. We'll see how that's so. So it indicates us that these two are together in some way. And when there's a more instructive example of that, I'll point it out. And this verse happens not to be the most obvious examples of that. Okay, so let's learn something new. Okay, those of you in the studio are welcome also to comment. So vayireu, let's start here. So I told you the familiar vayud, but it's modified by this u at the end. So what does that do? It actually, rather than and he did, past tense, the vayud u makes it and they did this verb, and you'll find that reflected in your glossary. So to make a note of it, check out the glossary, vayud u, and I listed it among the prefixes as and they yud resh aleph. What's yud resh aleph? We'll look in our glossary and we'll see that let me magnify it. Okay, that we'll see in our alphabetical glossary here that yud resh aleph indicates fear or awe. Okay, so in this verse it means let's go back to the verse. Okay, it means so I'm trying to find the right tab. Here we go. Okay, it means and they feared. Now you'll notice that I didn't put a space for they. I only have a space for and the reason for that is that the identity of the they is who are the they? The identity of the they is identified in the next word. So while in Hebrew it's like and they feared the something feared. Okay, in Hebrew in English you just say and the something feared, right? So and we'll figure out who it is that feared. Let's put feared over here. The malachim feared. So let's start with the first part, which is malach. Now, malach, as I mentioned before, it's a homonym with another word. Malach means an angel, okay, or a messenger. I had this whole argument in my comments section this week about what the meaning of this word is. Messenger, angel. So technically it's messenger or agent, but in the context of what's one of God's messengers, it could be a prophet, a human prophet, or it could be an angelic minister. So that's not this word. That's the word malach, which is spelled mem lamed aleph chaf. Okay, it sounds like this word malach, and some people might say, "Oh, melachim are kings," from the word melech, right? It's not melech as king either. Okay, now it most closely relates to another very familiar simple word that some people may know, which is melach, which is spelled mem lamed chet, just like malach. Does anyone know what melach is?
Salt.
Melach is salt, that's right. Now a malach, on the other hand, is a person who for some reason is identified with a very similar title. A malach is a sailor. Okay, a malach is a sailor.
We call them an old salt.
Oh yeah, a salty sea dog. But now I thought, I guess this is the child in me. When I learned that a malach is a sailor, I thought it was because the sea is salty. And that seems like the rather obvious connection. However, that's not what the commentators explain as the reason for malach, and there's a good reason for that. We find the word used in the Torah, mimulach, from the same root as this, means actually mixed, and a malach really means like a mixer. And why is he called a mixer? And this is the reason the commentaries give, is because a malach is really, he's the oar man. Okay, he holds the oar and he paddles in the water to move the boat. Okay, and the paddling motion of the oar in the water is a mixing motion. You make a mixing motion with the oars. So they're really, the word has more to do with mixing. And that's what they explain, because the sailors paddle, they row the boat, row your boat. The rowers are making a mixing motion. They're called, therefore, malachim, mixers. The question is, melach, salt, why is that the same root? And while I haven't seen this written, my intuition tells me probably because we mix salt into just about every food. It's the quintessence, you sprinkle the salt and you give a mix. So salt is a food that's mixed into everything. That's like a simple idea that came to mind. I had another deeper idea that salt is a mixture of two elements, sodium and chlorine. And the sodium and chlorine on their own are toxic. They're poison. But when they're mixed together, they become tasty, and they're a flavor enhancer, and they're very desirable. And we put them mamish Yiddish. We put them really into everything. It's mixed into everything, but it's mixed into everything. That was my first explanation. But salt itself is sort of the ultimate mixture. It's a chemically bonded compound that each element on its own has such a unique identity that they're each a poison, and yet that identity as a poison is totally nullified in the new creation that comes about by mixing them two together. It's the mixture that now defines them, not the original identity of the individual elements. Their original identity as singular components has been nullified, and a new identity has emerged from a chemical bond or a mixture. So it's like the ultimate mixture. That was one of the reasons I thought why maybe salt was called melach. Maybe that's too deep of a reason to think, but that being the case, I just want to clarify the meaning of this word. The malachim, which are the sailors, is because they mix the waters, they churn the waters with the oars. That's why they're called malachim. Interesting. So, okay, now I said sailors in plural, so I gave away the goose over here. But this suffix, the im suffix that I mentioned before, which is the chirik e and the yud mem, im is the plural masculine suffix. So when you have im at the end, it means it's plural for a masculine word. Malach is a masculine word, plural malachim. Malachim are sailors. Ha-malachim, the sailors. So we have, and the sailors feared. And the sailors feared. Okay. Again, I'll invite you to comment, question at any time. Let's see. Here he says, Yarkite ha-spina ha-sifina. Yarkite ha-sifina is a contract chain. Okay, we'll get there. Says Jacob, it only sounds the same to Ashkenazim. Which one? Malachim and malachim? Because we're so not careful about the way. But I know I agree that if you pronounce them very particularly and carefully, you'll hear the difference. But it's so close that people often get confused. So Joseph Bowman said ruler. I think he was referring, when I was asking about malachim, that again, the word melech means a king, but this is not the word melech, which is spelled mem lamed chaf. This is malach, which is spelled mem lamed chet. It's a different spelling, different vowelization, and it's a different meaning. Okay, so, but it's confusing. That's why I spent time on it. I want to go faster because we're running out of time and we have many much to go. This is maybe the longest verse we've encountered so far. So if you have something to ask, stop me. And if not, I'm going to keep moving. So once again, we have Vayiz Aku. There's the Vayud U like we had in the first line, which we established means and they. Now, because we don't have another noun in this phrase to identify who the they is, we really do actually, but I separate it. So you'll see that even the they here is not necessary if we would combine these phrases together. But because I'm doing it phrase by phrase, I'm going to be a little more particular. Once we see what the next phrase is, you'll see you could state it differently. But and they what? And they za'ak. Now, za'ak, you'll see in the glossary. I won't go to the glossary now. I'll trust that you could do it yourself. It means to cry out. Za'ak means to cry out. Okay. So, and vayiz'aku, and they cried out. Sorry. I hit my keyboard the wrong way. And they cried out. So the sailors feared. Remember, there's a storm, and the boat's going to break. So they're afraid, and they cry out. What do they cry out? Ish el Elohav. Now, the word ish is a very simple word in Hebrew that many people may know, and it also has a less simple meaning. And it so happens in this verse, both meanings are present, as you'll see, and I'll explain why. But ish in its simplest form, anyone know what ish is?
Man.
A man. Here, Jacob pointed out the different spelling between malach here, meaning a sailor, and melech, meaning a king. So ish is man. Ish is man. And that's actually going to go over here. Okay. But what's interesting is that the word ish, meaning a man, could also mean the English word each. And I actually believe the word each, E-A-C-H. And by the way, in French, CH is a sh sound. So that it's like almost like ish. It's almost the same exact word. I would not be surprised at all to learn, not that I looked into it, that the word each in English is related to the Hebrew word ish. Because ish means a man, but it's also euphemism in Hebrew when I talk about particular individual things, even not an individual person, but I could call each one ish. Okay, and I didn't prepare examples to show you of this usage in other places in Tanakh. For now, you'll take my word for it. Maybe we'll encounter more examples later in our studies together. But the word ish is used to mean each, as well as to mean a individual, a man. So ish al-alohav here, which you could translate as a man to his God. In English, you would say each man to his God. Ish, each man. So both meanings of ish, man or each man fits here contextually. Each man cried out to Elohav. Now already in Elohav, you may see a familiar word Elohim, which is one of the names of God, but you may not know, you may know or not know, and Joseph, pay attention, that Elohim, and I discussed this in some recent YouTube shorts, it could mean God singular, even though it's written in the plural, and we discussed this in my series before this, that we speak of beings who are in a position of dignity, power, or respect in the plural. It's kind of like the royal we. We speak about beings that deserve respect in the plural to create a distance between us and them, that we're just one small individual, and it's not a one-to-one. That would be too intimate. It's as though it's one to many. I don't speak directly to you. I speak to you with a degree of distance. We do it in French when we say vous, when we say you, and we speak formally, we say vous, which is the plural, even if we're speaking to one, because it's formal. It shows respect. It shows a certain degree of lack of intimacy, of a degree of distance. But when we speak familiarly in French, we say tu, which means you, singular. So I'm just pointing that out about the word Elohim, is that it could mean plural gods. It could also mean singular God. And when we speak about the God of the Torah in that context, we certainly mean it in a singular. However, there is a singular form of this word, and I put it in the glossary. I'll just take a moment to show you the singular form. The singular form is, let me blow it up. Oh, I already did this. I have my glossary open and blown up already. Let's look at this one. The singular form is here. And I'll teach you something else here. This is pronounced Eloah. Some people don't realize that. They look at this word and they go Eloha because they see a hey with a patach underneath it. So what people don't realize, I'll just teach a little bit of grammar. This patach, the at the end here, is what's known as patach genuva. Patach genuva literally means the stolen patach, and where normally the consonant sound precedes the vowel, in this case, it's the opposite. The vowel precedes the consonant. And when does that happen? It happens at the end of a word with 3 letters. The most famous one that people know is the chet, like in the word ruach, luach, noach, etc. That's the easy, famous one. With an ayin, the letter ayin, or the letter hey, those 3 letters. When those 3 letters appear at the end of a word with a patach, the patach sound precedes. Now, the reason most people don't appreciate that is because unless you're a Sephardic Jew or a Yemenite Jew, you're not really enunciating the ayin in a guttural manner. It sounds equivalent to an aleph, which is totally silent. So when an ayin is going to get patach at the end, it's just going to sound like ah. So you don't know if the ah is coming before the ayin or after the ayin because it makes no difference. The ayin is silent. The ayin is not really silent. The ayin is a guttural letter, ayin, ayin. And therefore, if you put the vowel after the consonant, it's ah. But if you put the vowel prior to the consonant, it's ah. Okay? So when ayin is at the end of a word with a patach, like in this word, elo, ah, which has a hey, but if it would be an ayin, it would be ah, right? Not ah, but ah. Now, here with the hey, it's the same, and that's why there's a dot in the hey, which we spoke about before. The mapik is the dagesh, that dot for emphasis. When it's in the hey, it's called a mapik. Why? I don't know, but that will indicate that you should enunciate the hey. Usually at the end of a word, the hey is also silent, like in this word oniya. You're not going to hear that hey. You don't hear the. It's not oniya. It's not. It's oniya, and the hey is silent. But here, because the patach precedes the hey, I enunciate the hey. Ah. Okay, it's a little grammarless. So this word is Eloah, and it means singular God or deity. And here's, of course, the plural Elohim, God or gods. And it could also refer to, like we said before, it could refer to a being in a position of great power. Angels are called Elohim, and judges are called Elohim, rulers are called Elohim, etc. So, but usually it means gods. In this context, it means gods. I should say usually means God. It's usually talking about the God of Israel, in which case it connotes singular. But here, let's go back to our worksheet. Where's our worksheet? Okay, here we're going to see, it looks like it's the singular, but what I'm going to point out to you here is 2 things. The question is where to start, but let's start over here. This vav at the end, this vav suffix, it's in the glossary. Vav suffix means him, his, it, or its, meaning him, his, him or belonging to him, its, it or belonging to it. Okay, so here the vav is his. Each man to his, Eloha, so it would sound like almost like God singular. And it could be, like I said, Elohim could mean singular, even though it's written in the plural, because it's speaking about the type of being about whom we speak in the plural, even when we mean singular. So you have to know that. But I want to point out also that this yud that precedes the vav is another suffix. And that indicates that the noun here is plural. So the vav at the end indicates that it's belonging to him. What's belonging to him? Eloha, the God. But is it one or many? So that's what this yud tells you. This yud that follows the noun but precedes the suffix of his indicates the plural. So this word is like Elohim, God or gods, Vav, of him. Okay, so this could mean each man to his gods, plural, because if these were pagans, right? So then they may each have had many gods. Each man may have had many gods. But it could, I want you to appreciate that even though this is literally the plural form, it could refer to singular, as I explained, meaning each man cried out to his God. This one, prayed to this God, and this one prayed to that God. The meaning here is ambiguous if each man had multiple gods or not. It doesn't really make a difference. So now I want to just go back here, and I said, and they cried out, each man to his gods. Now, really, if you read these two phrases together, Vayizaku ish Elohav, you could have translated it as, and each man cried out to his gods, because the each man indicates who the they are. It's all of them individually, right? Okay. So the sailors feared, and they cried out each man to his gods. Okay. I didn't hear any comments. I don't see any new comments. Somebody put in the private chat that in German, it's the same as French, that the familiar form is one way, and the formal is the same as the plural, even when it's meant as a singular. So we find that linguistically, it's very ubiquitous that a way of speaking respectfully is to speak in the plural. We find this in Hebrew as well. Okay, so and the sailors feared, each man cried out to his gods. We have like 1 more minute, and we have so much more to go. So this verse might have to be a 2-parter. Maybe we'll just do a little more and then we'll pause. I started a little late tonight because I had a technical difficulty. So let's see if we can push a few more minutes, and then maybe we'll pause shortly. Okay, let's go here. Vayatilu. Remember, interrupt me anytime. Vayatilu et hakelim. So again, we have here the vayud u, which is and they. Okay, so we'll fill that in. So this is the third occurrence of that. I don't want a capital A there. And they cast, and we have hakelim. Hakelim is the definite article, and kelim, again, we have the im ending, the plural. So we'll probably put an S at the end of this word for plural, the something. Now, plural what? Plural of a keli or a kili, which I have in the glossary. Let me switch to the glossary. Okay. We have over here kili. Kili is a vessel. So what they did was, Vayatilu, we translate already, and they cast the vessels. Now, I don't mean vessels as in boats. A boat is a vessel. But we mean vessels as in implements, tools, items. They cast the vessels. Asher. Oh, so here I had a little star. And I want to just talk for a minute about that, and then maybe that'll be the end because we're over time. But here's the word et, which we have not encountered before. And I want to talk about the word et. It's very important. Now, you'll notice there's no translation here for et. Okay? Vayatilu et hakelim, and they cast the vessels. So I have and they cast vayatilu, and I have hakelim, the vessels. What is et doing over here? Okay, so listen carefully. I have a little star over here. We can go down to the notes. The preposition et usually indicates the following word is the object, as it does here. There's another function, which maybe we'll talk about another time. But the usual usage of et is to indicate that the word here is the object. So what do I mean by that? Because look, Vayizaku ish el Elohav. They cried out. Who cried out? Ish el Elohav. Each man. It's the ish that cried out. So you see that the subject, the man or each man cried out. The subject follows the verb. Vayiru'u malachim, and they feared. Who feared? The sailors feared. The subject follows the noun. So if I would follow this down, vayatilu hakelim, what would that mean? If I didn't have the word et over there, what did that mean, vayatilu hakelim? How would you translate that?
It would mean that the kalim themselves cast.
Right. It would make the kalim, the vessels, the subject of the sentence. And it would mean the vessels cast, just like in every other occurrence in this verse. Vayiru'u hamalachim. The sailors feared. Vayizaku ish. Each man cried out. Vayatilu hakelim would mean that the vessels cast. The vessels cast? What did the vessels cast? Vessels can cast? No, of course not. Vayatilu et hakelim. And they cast et hakelim, object. They cast the vessels, okay? Et indicates the object. It's a very important function in biblical Hebrew, okay? So I'm just pointing that out. Everyone should be aware of that. All right, I think we have to pause because of the time. Maybe I'll push it 2 more minutes because we started late. Okay, let's push another 2 minutes, okay? They cast the vessels, asher ba'oniya. The word asher, look in your glossary, means, anyone have it?
Which or that.
Yeah.
Which or that. Yeah.
Which or that. I go with that. Yeah, I agree that could be which also. And they cast the vessels that, and like I pointed out over here, were is not in the Hebrew. The state of being verb is implied. If I wouldn't have it, it would be that in the boat. And they cast the vessels that in the boat. In the Hebrew, that's sufficient. But in English, it's not sufficient. I need a state of being verb. That were in the boat. Just in Hebrew, it's superfluous. But Sheba Aniyas, I had to throw it in there. In the English, the implied state of being. And they cast the vessels that was in the boat. Meaning, like we said before, they threw them overboard. They threw over the vessels overboard. Why? Lehakel. Okay. Lamed we translate as 2. And Kuf Lamed is 2 letters of a shoresh. Now here, you're going to say, aren't there 3 letters in the shoresh? And then, but the letters disappear. This isn't one of the letters that disappear. So I'm going to give you 2 answers to that. First, let me just explain what the question is. We go to our shoroshim and we see Kuf Lamed is from the shorish kalal, which means to lighten, diminish, or curse. Like those who know Hebrew know that a kilala means a curse. Likalel, when both lameds appear, is to curse. What is a curse? But the word kal in Hebrew with just one lamed, the word kal in Hebrew means light. Not light like shining a light. Light is in the opposite of heavy. Kal is light. So to lighten or diminish, that makes sense. Where does curse come in? So you have to understand that this is the depth of the Hebrew language. To curse something in Hebrew is the opposite of to bless it. To bless, like in English, a curse and a blessing are the opposite. But to bless in Hebrew means to increase. The word for blessing means increase. So when you are blessing something, what you mean is that you are expressing that you wish for this thing to increase. May you be blessed means you should be increased. So that means to be cursed is to be decreased, to be diminished. That's why the word for curse in Hebrew is the same as to make something light or diminished. So that's first of all. Now you'll see there's 3 letters, kalal. But in the word lahakel, there's only 1 lamed. Why? So one easy answer is that when you have a doubled letter in the shoresh, like here, it's enough that one of them appears and it counts for both. Okay, that's one way of saying it. There's another thing you should know, and it only happens to work out in this word because it's more coincidental. But I told you the 4 letters that tend to vanish from a shoresh when it's conjugated in a word are the what we call the Jonah letters, Yud, Vav, Nun, He. And incidentally, Jonah means a pigeon or a dove which flies away. So we say the Jonah letters fly away. That's the mnemonic, why they disappear. Occasionally, the lamed also does this, less frequently than the others. That's why it's sort of not included. So you might even call them sometimes they're called the Yona letters. Instead of the Yona letters, they're called the Yona letters. And it's another mnemonic because the Lamed prefix li means to. Yona, to the pigeon or to the bird. Where did the letter go? It flew away. Leona, it went to the birds. It flew away to the birds. Leona. Lamed is another one of those letters. Is that the reason the Lamed disappeared in this word? Oh, I'm not even sharing the tab. Here's the tab I meant to be sharing. Sorry. Here's the shoresh, kalal, and to lighten, diminish, or curse. So that is that the reason the Lamed isn't present? It's not the reason the Lamed isn't present. The reason the Lamed isn't present is because it's a doubled letter in a shoresh. It's kind of okay if one represents two. But so happens also, I mean, while we're dealing with it, I'll tell you the Lamed happens to be one of those letters that occasionally disappears. Just, you ought to know that. So, sorry for not sharing that tab earlier. Forgot. So, lehakel would be to, anyone?
Lighten, to lighten it, yeah.
To lighten. And we already had me alehem from before, from on them, to lighten from on them, meaning the boat was being weighed down by stuff, cargo, whatever might have been on the boat, movable items. So because the boat was threatening, it was threatening to break, to capsize, to be destroyed, to be ruined in the storm, they wanted to make the boat lighter so that it wouldn't sink. So they started vayatilu es hakelim. They started throwing the vessels off of the boat, asher ba'oniyah, that were in the boat, lehakel me'alihem, to lighten from upon them. Okay, I think there's about as much time as we have, and as I pointed out, this is the longest verse we've encountered so far. We still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines, and some of them are one word each. It's kind of the second half is going to be easier, but I don't want to take more time than belongs to me. So we translated the first half of the verse. I think we learned a lot of stuff. I hope it was helpful. I hope it was useful, and I'll take any comments and questions, and then we'll close it out. Surely, direct object marker. Yeah, the word et is the direct object marker. Correct. Mary Hamilton Spitz, great class. Thank you. I appreciate it. Many thanks. Great class. Thank you. You're welcome. Okay. Joseph Pullman. How they get bet to mean 4 in Genesis 1:1. Oh, very good. Okay. I want to address this. Question is, do I have time to address it? Tim Flanagan, thank you for your time, Rabbi. Okay. So I'm gonna try to answer this quickly. And here's what the questioner is referring to. In Genesis 1:1, it says, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, which is typically translated as in the beginning, Bereshit. God created the heaven and the earth. Oh, you know what I didn't talk about? The answer to this question really requires a little bit of discussion on something in the verse that I didn't gloss over it. It's down here to the blank, why the appears twice. See if I can answer it without getting to that. But so essentially it says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Now, it doesn't really say that. This is a complex deep dive. It doesn't really say that. And those of you who are in my class are already asking the question, what do you mean, Bereshit, in the beginning? Where's the the? You told me it should be Bareshit, because ba is in the, ba is in. Bereshit would mean in a beginning, right? God created the heaven and the earth. And that's actually not correct. What do you mean? Rabbi, you've been telling us this whole time. So this is the classical quandary of the first verse, the first word of the Torah, is that Bereshit is not a grammatically correct word, because Bereshit is in the construct form. And that means, it means in the beginning of. Bereshit means in the beginning of. in the beginning of, and there's no noun that follows it to tell you in the beginning of what. It's missing. There's a word missing. Bereshit, in the beginning of, God created the heaven and the earth. So it's very mysterious, and there are many, many pages written to answer this. I will answer what I think will be most directly relevant to Joseph's question. Is that Rashi, the classical commentator, says based on this, that Bereshit does not mean in the beginning of. Rather, we said like this. Bet is typically translated as in or with. But the truth is that the prefix bet can have a lot of translations in English, and that's not Hebrew's fault, that's English's fault. Because the same idea is conveyed in Hebrew with the prefix bet, but in English it's expressed differently in different situations. So it's not Hebrew's fault, it's English's fault. So I'm going to try to do this the best I can, and I'll show you why some translators might say for over there. So Rashi offers the following. You might say bet in or with, right? With something called Reshit, Hashem created the heaven and the earth. Now, what is this something called Reshit that Hashem used to create the heaven and the earth? So maybe I'll simplify the answer even further. If you look in the book of Proverbs, it says Hashem, there's a chapter in Proverbs, and maybe Jacob knows offhand what chapter it is, maybe chapter 17. Maybe I made that up totally. It says Hashem Kanani Reshit Darko. God acquired me, but the word konan Hebrew also means create. It's all of the discussions. You could translate Hashem created me. Reshit Darko, the beginning of his way. Tanakh is for girls. I love it. I have a story about that. Hashem, you love it, Jacob. Hashem created me or acquired me or created me. Reshit Darko, the Reshit, the construct form, the beginning of Darko, his way. Hashem, and if you look in that chapter, which I don't remember the chapter number offhand, the whole subject of the chapter is who is speaking. Wisdom is speaking. Chochmah is speaking. Okay, wisdom says Hashem created me or acquired me, the beginning of his way. Now, our sages understand the wisdom in that verse to be a synonym for the Torah itself. The wisdom of God. Torah is a revelation of the intellect of God. So Chachma there refers to Torah, and there's many indications of that, which we don't have the time now to go into. So when it says Hashem Kanani Reshit Darko, God created me as the beginning of his way, means that before God created the world, he created the Torah. And and Rashi says this in a number of places, and now's not the time. But what does that exactly mean? Hashem created the Torah? Too much to go into right now. You'll ask a lot of questions on it. But the idea is that an architect creates a blueprint before he makes the building. So God had a blueprint for the universe, and the blueprint was the Torah, meaning, what's my goal? My goal is that this Torah should be fulfilled. So therefore, I need to create a world which will lead to that goal, a world in which the Torah can be fulfilled. This is very deep. We could talk for so long on this subject. But hear me on whatever level you're hearing me. I want the Torah to be fulfilled. That's my goal. That's my blueprint. So I will create a world that fits that blueprint. And so therefore, the Torah, which is called Reshit Darko, the beginning of God's path, which he created first as the beginning of his path of creation. The word Reshit is used there to describe the Torah. And the Torah, by starting the Torah with the word Bereshit bara, which we're fooled into translating in the beginning God created. But if you look a little closer, you say, wait, that's not what it says. It says Bereshit, construct form in the beginning of. What is it talking about? It doesn't mean in the beginning. It means with Reshit, with that thing which is called Reshit, Hashem created the world. He had a blueprint, and he used that blueprint to create a world. The blueprint is Reshit. What is Reshit? Reshit is the Torah. The Torah is the blueprint. So why is someone translating that as for? What it means is for the Torah, God created the world. Because like I said, what was God's goal? I want the Torah to be fulfilled. That's my goal. And it's with that purpose in mind that I create the world. So you might say it's for that purpose. It's for that goal. For Reshit. For the Torah, which is called Reshit, for the fulfillment of that, for that purpose, God created the heaven and the earth. So that's why the bet in Genesis 1:1, in a certain English expression, could be, I'm saying it could be expressed with the word for. But that bet is a very flexible prefix. Like I said, could mean in, could mean with, and depending on what idiom you're expressing in English, could be translated differently than that. So that's why I think if it would be for, that's how you get for from the bet there. I hope that's a clear answer. Okay, Jacob, I'm going to tell you the story. You said Tanakh, you commented Tanakh is for girls. So for those who don't know, in men's institutions of Torah learning, the focus is on Talmud study. And Tanakh, the study of Tanakh, is relegated to a certain degree for a person to study on his own. It's not what the classes focus on. Tanakh is looked at as something that's relatively simple and easy to understand. You can learn it on your own. But the Talmud is so complicated that it requires a teacher and it requires a tremendous amount of training. And you have to hear the words I'm saying. Learning the Talmud requires a tremendous amount of training. And it's a very big problem when people who don't have years of training in learning Talmud pick up a volume of a Talmud and read it and draw all kinds of wacky conclusions based on a simple reading of the Talmud. They don't understand how to read it. They just don't know what they're doing. It's dangerous. And this is one of the reasons I think that the Talmud says that a non-Jew should not engage in this sort of study, except where it's relevant for them. But even then, of course, with the teacher and with the proper guidance, it's a very volatile text if you don't know what you're doing. So the primary focus in the yeshivot, in the institutions of Torah learning, is the training in Talmud study. But in women's institutions, the Talmud is generally not studied. I'm not going to go into it now. Talmud study is seen as an obligatory focus of Jewish men, but not of women. And their studies, therefore, tend to focus more on the text of Tanakh than the men's schools. So there became this sort of like social norm that like girls learn Tanakh and boys learn Talmud, and Tanakh is for girls. That's what Jacob said. Tanakh is for girls. I was like, I don't learn Tanakh when I'm a girl. Okay, and there are other reasons that Tanakh study was discouraged to be studied more. The Jewish people went through a period where there were secularizers who were trying to do Bible criticism and using things in the Tanakh to try to disprove divine origin and God, and this was leading people astray. So they said, stop reading Tanakh because these people are going to lead you astray. Don't look. That was something, another social development in Jewish history, that the study of Tanakh became relegated to more of a back burner. So it became like a girls' thing. Anyway, so there was but girls don't learn the Talmud, right? However, in our modern society where girls feel they have to do everything the same as men do, they have to, right? If anything a man could do, I could do better. So they started schools for girls to learn Talmud. And one of the pioneers, and only Jake was going to find this amusing. One of the pioneers in the study of girls learning Talmud was someone named Rabbi Bravender, a man whom I know personally, and I actually studied under him for a period of time. He's a brilliant person, a very pleasant man. I like him a lot. But he was controversial for encouraging women to study Talmud in depth. So somebody I know told me that when he met Rabbi Bravender, he said, I want to congratulate you on the programs you have created to encourage women to study the Talmud. I want to know, when are you creating a yeshiva where you encourage the boys to study Tanakh? So it's kind of like a little bit of a shtuch, as we say in Yiddish. You know, you give them a little, you stick it to them a little bit. Like, oh, you're so focused on getting girls to study the Talmud. You know, maybe we should focus more on getting boys to study Tanakh. So fine, that's my girls Tanakh is for girls story. Jacob says the Rebbe, that's the Lubavitcher Rebbe, was very encouraging of women getting a taste of Talmud in their classes. Okay, a taste of Talmud, I think anybody can and should have. The question is, should a woman dedicate her life to the study of Talmud the way a man should? And generally speaking, the answer to that is no. The reason for that is a little too deep for me to go into right now. I'm not saying a woman can't, but I'm saying it's not her primary purpose, and it shouldn't be her focus. In general, I'm not saying there aren't exceptions, but because of Jewish man's obligations, Talmud study becomes much more important for him. And that's all I'm going to say on the subject. And a woman should not confuse her obligations with a man's obligations. It's just, we don't want to have that kind of confusion. But I got to go. So I'm heading out. Everybody have a wonderful night.
Thank
Be
you,
well.
Rabbi.
Take care.
Shavuot
Thanks
tov.
today.